big this guy is. Look, he's trying to get out.
Chill out, man. Have you tried parole?
School field trips are probably one of the most underrated parts of childhood. Besides not paying taxes and living with your parents, school field trips almost feel like a holiday. Don't get me wrong, it's still like you're at school, but at the same time, you're not at school. It's like the live action Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's like Avatar, but it's not like Avatar at the same time. Field trips are a chance for you to step outside the classroom and get a good look at the real world. Or it's a chance for some kids to unleash absolute chaos upon their city. Your teacher usually finds a way for those kids not to go, but some of them end up falling through the cracks, if you know what I mean. If you were one of those kids who forgot to get their permission slip signed, or you forgot to forge your parent's signature, I do not condone forgery, you were out of luck. But for the rest of us, we were ready for the outside world. But before you leave for any field trip, your teacher either puts you into groups or you choose your own groups. You know, the buddy system. And if it was a grade-wide field trip, you were put in a difficult situation. Do you leave the friends that you made in your class throughout the year? Or do you hang out with your real friends that are in different classes? I don't know about you, but I'm going with my day ones. But almost every good school field trip starts with getting on the yellow rectangle of death on wheels, also known as the school bus. I'm surprised I ever made it anywhere riding these things. And sometimes I feel like we all had the same childhood because it seems like everyone has been on the same 5 or so field trips. The most quintessential field trip is the trip to the museum. I always thought it was crazy for people to let kids run around very fragile pieces of art and artifacts, because if my mom said she didn't have any McDonald's money, what makes you think that she has pterodactyl money, huh? I think the crazier thing is how people thought it was a good idea to put a collection of stolen items in one location. Oh yes, I'm on my Killmonger Marcus Jr. King stuff today. But the museum I went to as a kid also functioned as a science center. So we got to learn about science, meaning a person who was born in the 1900s got to talk to us about back in their day that there were only 9 planets instead of 8. I'm sorry Neil deGrasse Mike Tyson ruined your childhood, but leave that stuff in the past. There was also this drug exhibit that was basically propaganda. It was talking about if you smoke the weed, you're going to be a broke homeless loser without a job. Why are you looking at me for? They were hyper aggressive with it too. They really were trying to brainwash us into thinking that marijuana was the worst thing you could put in your body. Have you seen the ingredients list on the back of Oreos? It's wild because marijuana wasn't even the most dangerous drug at the exhibit. They spent more energy talking about the ills of marijuana use and completely skipped over cocaine and heroin. The whole thing was a wild experience. Speaking of wild experiences, we also have the classic trip to the zoo. I already live in Florida, which is basically already a zoo. And Miami is already one of the more fascinating exhibits we have here. So a trip to the Miami Zoo, you already know there's going to be some fuckery involved. But almost all the negative experiences I have from the zoo have nothing to do with the zoo itself, but my classmates. I'm telling you, your classmates can either make or break your field trip experience. I remember I brought my PS Vita to take some pictures because this was the time before I had my own phone, and someone asked to use it and they threw it at the flamingos. And one of the flamingos almost ended up eating it. For some reason, I got it confiscated when the zookeeper was able to retrieve it, even though I wasn't the one who threw it at the flamingos. And there was this other time when we had our lunch break, and you know, since this is the one time we don't have to eat burgers with a side of chocolate milk, thanks Michelle Obama, you have to go all out. I had a Publix turkey sub with a side of salt and vinegar chips and a brisk iced tea. I was going to be eating swell. But before I could dig in, this white boy named Joshua took the bag my lunch was in and threw it into the howler monkey exhibit. And when my teacher asked him why did he do it, he said, I was feeding the monkeys monkey food.
That's racist!
The only problem I have with zoos is that a lot of the animals there look miserable. Look at this majestic creature. It should be in Africa, not Miami. Is that racially motivated? Since I live in Florida, I also went to the Everglades. When I was growing up, I thought it was some type of state mandated thing since the teachers would get on your ass about getting your permission slip signed. They even said if we didn't go, we wouldn't be able to graduate high school. It wasn't until COVID that I found out that was a farce. They just made that shit up to scare us into going. I don't know why. I know the Everglades is our state's national park and all, but it's also the most dangerous national park in the country. And we let thousands of children every year go into dangerous swamp-infested waters. To be honest, saying it out loud, that's one of the most Florida things ever. Imagine a place where the air is thick and humid and the mosquitoes are bigger than Joey Swoll. As if Florida wasn't already a hotbed for wildlife and shenanigans.
I literally stepped outside to get the mail, and look what I found right in front of my house. I'm telling you, this is not a real place.
The Everglades takes it to a whole new level of chaos and destruction. Picture this. We're cruising down the murky waters on an airboat. The captain's shouting something about gators and mangroves, but all I can focus on is trying to stay alive because the airboat doesn't have seatbelts. And you're on the edge of your seat trying not to get eaten by pythons. But of course, no Everglades trip is complete without encountering the infamous Florida Man. The elusive creature known for its questionable decisions and affinity for alligators. I swear you can't take 2 steps in the Everglades without stumbling upon some dude trying to illegally wrestle a gator or attempting to catch a fish with their mouth. There is also the classic end of the year field trip. The end of the year field trip is usually to an amusement park or your state's capital. I remember going to Tallahassee for my 5th grade end of the year field trip, and I'm not going to lie, that's where I realized Tallahassee isn't a real place. When my class was checking into the hotel, in the lobby, we saw someone that was on that white powder. And by the way the staff was acting, I think all of them were on that spice. In 8th grade, I went to Islands of Adventure in Universal, and I was paired up with my friend John. And this was his first time going to any theme park. So I promised him I was going to show him a good time. I took him on the Popeyes ride, but I forgot to tell him that it was a wet ride and he didn't bring a towel. So he was drenched for an hour and he refused to buy a towel or pay for one of those drying machines because he didn't want to spend his money on stupid things. But he bought a Krusty Burger moments later. But John was not one of my day ones. So when I saw my other friends, I went to hang out with them. But when I turned around, he was gone. I was shocked and I started panicking. I wasn't scared that I was going to get in trouble for leaving him. I was scared that I was never going to be able to go on another field trip ever again. It turns out that he ditched me on purpose and he met up with his real friend. Moral of the story, I think field trips were one of the only things that kept me sane during school. Because sometimes school can feel like prison. So I guess my field trip experiences weren't all that bad. It could have been a lot worse. I heard some kids picked cotton on a plantation for a field trip.
They took us to a fucking cotton processing place. And me and 28 other little nigglets in Miss Harper's 3rd grade classroom. And they're like, hey, y'all go out there, have fun, pick as much cotton as you want.
But tell me what you thought about the video in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell, and I'll see you in the next video.